Okay, we're ready now.
Yeah,
Over
okay.
to you.
So yeah, if we want to make a start by standing. So having our feet about hip width apart, just have a little look at your feet and try and make sure that they're parallel with each other. So our feet aren't straight oblongs, but if you can imagine the line in the middle of the feet being roughly parallel. I know it's a little bit pedantic, but what happens is our feet tend to slip out because it's a bit of an ask on our hips to keep them in. Not a big ask, but it's uncomfortable, so our feet slip out. And then it's just not great on the knees. You're not going to damage your knees in one class, but it's just good to have the feet straight. So I'm going to ask us to look a few times at the feet through the session. And let's just move a little bit to start with. Quite a lot of this will be relatively still and mindful into the body. So let's just move just to get things going. And what we'll do is we'll swing from side to side. What I would like you to do is I'd like you to turn away from the leg that becomes more weighted. Yeah, so have a little think about that because you might be going the other way, which isn't a disaster, and I can't come round and encourage you to go the right way. So when you're falling into your right leg, or the weight is increasing under your right foot, the body is turning anti-clockwise. And when the weight is increasing in the left foot, so just moving from side to side. So Taichi comes from the martial tradition, and often the martial tradition are split up into internal arts and external arts. So the reason Tai Chi is one of the internal arts is because one of the things we're doing predominantly is bringing attention into our own body. So even though we might be doing something relatively simple and we can go into automatic pilot, and then there's a temptation, I do it myself all the time, there's a temptation to go out to whatever my mind wants to go out to, what I'm doing next, what I'm anxious about. I want us to encourage us, just like meditations, every time you notice that you're doing it, just keep folding your curiosity back into the experience of it. Imagine the arms are very heavy. Imagine the arms are like long sleeves filled with sand, just swinging around the body. And in a moment, we're going to come to some stillness. So let's do that now. Have a little look at the feet, see if they splayed out, see if you can encourage them to be times like this, looking at myself from a distance, I realise what it looks like not to have been to the barbers for 4 months. Strange world. Okay, so what I want us to do, we might want to do this closing our eyes, just because we've interrupted some sense distractions if we do that. But do feel free, obviously, keep your eyes open if you feel more comfortable doing that. And what I'm going to encourage us to do is take our interest down into the soles of our feet. So we can feel pressure, maybe we can feel texture, we can feel our socks or the barefoot, whatever we're touching, the surface we're touching. Maybe we can feel temperature. And within that noticing, I want you to notice, see if you can notice where there's any holding or tension. So it might simply be relatively abstract at the moment, or it might be incredibly obvious. But wherever it is on that spectrum, we paid attention to the feet, and now we're going to see if we can witness where we might experience or be aware of tension. allowing the body to breathe. And then we're going to find, in whatever way works for us, a way of easing that tension off. It might feel that you're only decreasing it by 1%, but just a sense that you're moving towards easing that tension. And then we're going to come up into the ankles. So the ankles don't always give us such an obvious feedback unless we've been working with them. So it might be that we just need to strongly visualize into this area. So don't worry about your anatomical knowledge of the ankles. They're quite complex. It could be a quite cartoon impression of the ankles. But maybe we could just imagine this area melting. If you can feel into the ankles, that's fantastic. But it might be that you just need to strongly visualize this area. And if you can feel tension, the cuff of tension around the ankles, I feel I have this cuff of tension that protects me from sprains. Again, see if you can find a way to calm that off to some degree. If the mind's gone off, just kindly and gently wrapping it back into the experience of the body. We're going to come up to the hips. Oh. Can people hear me?
We can hear you, but there is a little...
Sorry, say that again, Zoe.
We can hear you. There's a tiny bit of breaking up.
Oh, okay. Well, what I'll do is I'll just try to pace my sentences a bit longer. I suspect that's going to be the Wi-Fi. So yeah, apologies for that. Okay, so we have paid attention to the feet. Look for where there's holding. See if we can relax that. We've come up to the ankles. And then I want us to come up to the knees, so feeling our way into the knee joints. And I want us to try to work out what we need to do, or what we could do, that feels like the kneecaps could drop. Feels like the kneecaps could let go. And then I want us to come up into the hips. So literally where the head of the thigh bone goes into the socket of the pelvis. Again, not an easy place to feel unless we're doing a stretch or unless we hurt ourselves. But strongly imagining that area where the thigh bone goes into the hips. If you can feel tension, that's great. See if you can soften that off. If it's hard to get your mind in there, then just strongly imagine all the area around you, all the muscles and fascia, just turning to liquid. Okay, so let's move again. Let's move again from side to side. And as I said, try not to go on automatic pilot too much. So don't back into your body, but do see if you can keep being curious about what's being experienced in the body, especially the body moving. It's not a stationary body we're watching, it's the body moving. Am I clear enough? I can only see 4 people for thumbs up. Yeah? Thank you. Great. Thank you. So let's drop the arms again. We're going to do that sequence again. this time, what I want us to do is I want us to imagine our feet are like wax on a hot plate. So we're using this imagery to try and retract our feeling, not as a substitute, but we use this imagery that see if you can, while you're imagining this, imagining the wax softening and spreading, see if that can encourage you to actually feel the feet. Softening any tension. Maybe if you feel little knots of tension in the feet, you can imagine the area around it as if the tension is being shared out into this area. Into the ankles, feeling our way into the ankles, see if we can let go of any holding that we notice. And again, we're going to come up to the knees, see what we can do in way of relaxation that feels like the kneecaps could drop, even if it's by much less than a millimeter. If the kneecaps could drop. And then we're going to come up into the hip joints again. Feeling our way into the hip joints. Imagine that all the tight area around the hip joints is turning to liquid. And now I just want to imagine that there's a weight on our tailbone, maybe like a kilo, like a bag of flour. Just a weight on our tailbone, and it feels like it can the lumbar spine. Okay, so let's move again. While we're moving, can we be curious about how the experiences of the weight changing from foot to foot? Does it feel like a smooth transition, like one jug of water being poured into another? Or is it a little bit discontinuous? And if you do notice anything like that, you know, like it's being discontinuous or it's smooth, you can congratulate yourself that your mindfulness is present enough to notice these things. Even though it might feel that your body isn't doing what you're asking of it, the fact that you know that is a huge step in these kind of practices. Okay, so we'll do another bit of this stillness stuff. And there's a couple of other things I just want to talk about. So when we come up to our knees, sorry, keep at the screen. When we come up to the knees, so if we were like in a swimming pool, or if we were suspended from a branch of a tree, it's very easy to let go of the knees. Yeah. When we're standing in the room, the knees don't always feel safe to do that. So what we're going to be doing is when we come up to the knees the next time, and we're going to notice into the knees, we're going to try and relax the knees, relax any tension that we experience. We're then just going to explore allowing them to bend a little bit. So I don't want it to be a deep bend. It might be that the height of your body drops by about 5%. Yeah. When we come up to the hips, what I want us to do is I want us to imagine that the head of the femur, the head of the thigh bone, goes deeper in the socket. Yeah. So it's almost as if the body is being impaled on the thigh bones. Yeah. Have that kind of sense that the thigh bones connect deeper into the sockets of the bones. And then we're going to just draw the tailbone down. So as in lots of physical systems, there's two approaches. One is a kind of a forced approach, and one is a relaxed approach. And they can both reach the same place. When we're working with Tai Chi, We want a tilt in the pelvis. Now we can get there by forcing it, and that has an advantage. We can get there slowly over the years and decades by relaxing the lumbar. So maybe we can just find a place in between, not feeling that we need to force it too much, but having a bit of tension so it feels like the tailbone drops and curls under. And also trying to imagine the lumbar being relaxed so it can lengthen and consequently straighten. I'll talk us through all these things as we go. The chat. All right. Okay. So feet on the floor. Try and make sure they're parallel. This time, what I want us to imagine, that there's petals. Where our heel bones are, there's petals, and the roots of our big toe, the balls of the big toe, the roots of the little toe are like petals on water, and they're all drifting apart from each other. So we've got a strong sense of the soles of the feet spreading. Again, we use the imagery to encourage feeling, not as a replicant for it, not as an alternative. Just see if you can feel into the feet. Using this image, these petals, the heels, the roots of the big toes, the roots of the little toes spreading, with those petals on water drifting apart. Coming into the ankle joint, letting go in the ankle joint as best we can. We're going to do this stuff with the knees. So let's go slowly, feeling our way into the knees. Sometimes when we've felt into a new area, so I've got no idea, how much body work you've done, but sometimes when we feel into a new area, we can sometimes be uncertain if we're making it up before we're actually having an experience. In a way, we can. So that's a question we don't need to answer. Whatever you're doing is the right way for you at the moment. So trying to notice your experience in these. Maybe you can notice any experience of tension, allowing it to soften, having a sense that the kneecaps can be let go of, so they drop down. And now we're going to allow the body to drop a little bit. So we're allowing the knees to bend. Don't go too low. I don't want us to come away from this session with sore knees. We're just seeing if we can develop that confidence in allowing the knees to bend when they're relaxed, as if we were in a pool supported by water. And then when we come to the hips, we're going to strongly imagine going deeper into the sockets. So we're connecting from the floor to the soft feet, to the hips, so that the trunk has a continuous connection with the floor. And then we're going to push the feet against the floor. The knees will straighten, but not lock. And then we just let the tailbone pop out. So I didn't mention tailbone coming in. So let's do that again, a little bit quicker. Feeling into the feet, relaxing any tension that we experience. The same sensibility in the ankles. The same approach in the knees, but also with the knees we're going to allow them to bend under the weight of the body. As if the knees are like a rusty hinge and we just spray some oil on them. So I've just got another message. Are we good enough for sound? Yeah? Great. Fantastic. Thank you. And then we're going to come up into the hips, so strongly imagining that whole area around the groins and around the buttocks. Really melting, like turning to liquid so that the thigh bone goes deeper, or we imagine it going deep into the socket. And then we just imagine our tailbone to be weighted with like a kilogram. So it feels like it's not even us doing it. It feels like there's a gentle tug on the tailbone, and that will effectively lengthen the lumbar, which will effectively straighten it to some degree. And now we're going to push the floor to come up. We push the floor, the knees straighten but don't lock, and we just let the tailbone come up to its natural position. So maybe, just broken my pound shop glasses by sitting on them. Okay, I'm just going to admit. I just wondered if there's any questions at this point. Do I need to unmute people? Can people unmute themselves, Zoe?
People can unmute themselves now.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, is there any, so we'll just be building on this, but is there any questions? Is it? Yeah, we all good to carry on. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. What's the lens there? My glass. It's all very weird. Okay. So let's we'll stand up again, and what we'll do is, well, I'll stand up. We're going to come back to just this moving that we've been doing. But see if you can find it to be at all informed by what we've been doing before. So as you come into one side, maybe you can really imagine how the feet and the ankles and knees and the hips soften. Don't be too precise about it. So trust that your the practice so far has kind of got into your bones, as it were, got under your skin. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with the arms now. I've got another pair of glasses here. I'm just going to do a little bit of explaining first. So look, I can't stop you joining in if you want to join in straight away. I just encourage you to listen to some of the things I'm going to say, and then we'll do it together. So I won't be talking for very long. So there's a couple of things I want us to think about. So we'll be working with that same process, softening from the feet, the ankles, the knees, and the hips. So I'm going to refer to this as loading up. Don't worry if that word doesn't align with what your experience of the body is. It's just going to be a bit of shorthand that's loading up. It's a bit like loading up a spring. But unlike a spring or something pneumatic or hydraulic where it kind of loads up over the whole area, this kind of loads sequentially from below. So it's a bit like if you were lowering a concertina or a slinky spring or a paper lantern on the floor, it would rock up from below. So when we're coming down, there's definitely a sense that the body is being compressed from below. The softening allows it to be compressed from below. And then when we come out of that, we're going to bounce up and we're going to let the arms come up. Yeah. So just a couple of things about the arms coming up. We don't need them to come up too high. And out of all the people I've taught over the years, my experience is only 50% of you have done this as kids. So if you haven't done this, try to ignore what I'm saying. But if you ever done this exercise or this game really, what you do as a kid is where you have your arm really pushed against a wall or inside a door frame, or people hold your arms and you really push against it. And then when you let go, the arms float up. Yeah. So I know some of you will have done that. If you haven't, maybe you can just imagine what it's like. So the arms want to float up very naturally. So let's just give that a go. And we'll work a little bit faster through the coming up through the body, because we've got that a little bit into our system. So the feet melting, as if the feet are becoming continuous with the floor. Ankles softening and releasing. Letting go in the knees, letting go in the knees. And when you let go in the knees, allow them to bend a little bit, not too much. We might be just dropping the height of our body by about 5%. Deep relaxation in the hips so that the thigh bones can connect with the trunk. A slight tension on the tailbone to draw it down. And then we're going to bounce out of this position. As we bounce out, we'll let the arms float up, as if someone is picking you up under the elbows and the shoulders are very relaxed. And then we're going to come down again. So I'm not going to go feet, ankles, knees and hips. I'm just going to ask us to drop. So there's too much to think about for the arms. We're going to rely on that as a habit, and the arms come up. And then we're going to bounce out of that again, let the arms float up. And then we're going to at least start with the feet. Draw ourselves down. Push the floor, let the arms come up. Start from the feet. Draw ourselves down. Push the floor, arms come up. Start from the feet. Draw the arms down. We're going to be doing a little bit more of this for a few minutes. And there's a couple of other things I just want us to think about. So one is, one is the arms coming up. We can imagine, you know that, the arm can be held. If you get the right place under the elbow, the arm can just be lifted. It's easy to do it with someone else. But there's a sense that the arm can be lifted and the arm's very relaxed. But, the arms are quite heavy. So it's almost as if we were deeply drunk and asleep. Our minds are not drunk. And someone else was just to lift our arms so that we could be completely relaxed. Yeah, this sense of just the arms being lifted. And the other thing I just want us to think about at the moment, so when we come down, we've got this kind of movement. Now, it's quite a lovely movement to do, but it's very tempting to do it independently or at the beginning. And even though we haven't got the connections through the body, I mean, maybe you have, but we might not have the connections through the body. At least if we do this at the right moment, we can forge that connection. So one way of thinking about this is to imagine if the fingertips were on a shelf, just on the edge of the shelf, then as you came down, the fingers would drop off the shelf and then you can come down. But they've got to come down because you let go from below. So there's going to be, it's almost like the arms are going to be a slight afterthought. Yeah? Okay, so let's give this a go again. Let's just pause for a second. Let's close our eyes and regather our awareness into the experience of our bodies. Notice if anything's got tight, maybe our faces, our shoulders, other places that you know where you hold tension, but also the places that you know where you've got some familiarity of letting go. Don't go to the places where it feels solid and it's a little bit depressing because you can't access them. Go to the places where you know for the moment you can practice letting go. Yeah, face, maybe one shoulder, hands. Okay, so we're going to start this process again, loading from below. The first one, I will talk through the body. Once the arms are moving, I'm just going to encourage us to relax the feet bones. Yeah, so the first one, we're going to soften the feet, the ankles, the knees, like rusty hinges sprayed with oil. They're going to bend a little bit, deep into the hip joints, drawing the tailbone down, and then we're going to bounce out of this compressed position, let the arms float up. Fingertips on the edges of shelves. We're going to start with our feet first, lowering the body, and then the tips of the fingers are drawn off the shelf, and the arms can come down. And push to come up, and come down. So we're going to do this for a few minutes, and I'm just going to encourage us to just remember what I was saying earlier, that when we've got these very simple movements, it's very easy to go into automatic, and then we can go to our our favourite or unfavourite daydream. But see if you can keep being curious about new things that you might be noticing about your body when it's doing this. One image that I like around this is imagine you're like a bouncy castle. So you can imagine that the base of the castle is inflated and then the towers inflate. And if you imagine it was deflated from below, then the castle would collapse and then the towers, the arms would collapse. We're going to just be doing this practice for a few minutes, really exploring what it can be like to relax sequentially through the body. Because Tai Chi, it's got a big relationship with the cultivation of the energy chi. In Tai Chi, classically, you don't really talk about chi for a long time. And the way I think about chi is more to do with, it's different in Qigong, because you can get experiences quite quickly. But my sense of chi, energy in Tai Chi, is rather than having an idea of what you're looking for, it's more like when you do feel experiences in your body, especially experiences that are moving, then maybe then you can identify them as chi. And one way that Tai Chi encourages the movement of chi is if you allow the relaxation to move through the body and the attention to move through the body, then something else can tend to happen. Some extra experience, a sort of an energetic experience. But primarily, we're just interested in the changes of relaxation through the body as we do. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of moving from side to side. So as I said at the beginning, we're trying to turn away from the weighted leg. Turn away from the weighted leg. So ideally, we want to keep the knee pointing forward of the weighted leg to protect the knee. I can't go around and adjust you. And chances are, in a short session, we're not going to really do much to damage our knees. But we really want to keep the knee of the weighted leg pointing forwards. So I'm going to give you 3 ways. Am I going to give you 3 ways? Maybe, if I can remember more. I'm going to give you at least 2 ways to think about that. So what I want you to do is, as the weight is coming onto one leg, I want you to pin the little toe side of that leg down. That will help keep the knee facing forward, yeah? So as we're coming onto one side, because the turn of the body wants to encourage the knee to collapse, if we can pin the little toe side down of that weighted leg, remember we're turning away from the weighted leg, it will help the knee straighten. The other thing we can do is that the leg that becomes weighted, we can imagine the groin opening on that side like a book. Yeah? So if you can't see, just have a little look at what I'm doing here for a moment. Yeah? So see imagine that if this was I'm moving into this side, that the groin is opening like a book. And that again will work against the knee collapsing in. Yeah, so let's just do that. Do those things for a moment. It might be that you even have to have a little look down to see if the knee is collapsing in. One of the main reasons it does collapse in is because we got the tendency to be too ambitious in our turn, and it drags the knee. We're just relaxing round. We're just allowing, it's a small turn that comes out of the relaxation. Fantastic. So I just realised I've got a prop here that I use sometimes at the beginnings of classes. I think it ended up in the wash, so it's a bit stiff. I'm just going to come back to this move for a moment, where we push off the floor and the arms come down, and then we drop from below and the arms come down. And I'll just show you this, and even though it's a bit stiff, I'm sure you've seen one of these toys before, so you can imagine what I'm trying to encourage you to do. So these, you see these toys here that do that, because I'm pulling that thing. In a way, that's what we want to feel like. It's to feel like we sort of like softened into our body, and then the arms are drawn in. The arms are drawn into that cone there, yeah? So it's like the arms are an afterthought of being drawn down, yeah? So let's try that again. Okay, so we're going to put those two things together. Yeah, we're going to put the turning and coming back, turning and coming back, and we're going to do it again. So we all know, we've all done stuff where we do these twists, yeah, which are great. You know, it's great to twist the spine. We're not particularly trying to do that, and it's quite hard to close that instinct off. So I'm not going to put too many, throw too many things on to pressure you, because I've given you quite a lot of information so far. So if you just watch for a second, just see if I can tilt the screen to get my legs in a bit more. So I've sunk down, I've loaded my body, I've pushed the floor, my arms float up, and then I'm going to draw the weight into one side. And I bounce up, straight to the front, and into the other side. Yeah. So keep really trying to prioritize relaxation. Prioritize relaxation. Another real essential is to try and keep the knee of the weighted leg pointing forwards if you can. Little toe pinned down, groin open. But apart from that, don't worry if what you're doing doesn't look like what I'm doing. Really prioritize the body relaxing, especially here, yeah, especially the upper trapezius, where from the neck to the top of the deltoid, you know, where we all hold massive attention. Really imagine that lengthening away. Tops of the arms lengthening away from the ears and the neck. Arms really, really heavy. Really, really heavy. Okay, so there's one thing that I haven't to get my routines. I'm just going to come back a little bit to the leg movement, because I'm just going to I want to add a metaphor that I feel useful, and then we'll just get back and we'll just do the practice, and I'll try and make it a bit more easy style rather than being too prescriptive. And that is that, so normally when I shift weight from side to side, it's probably what I've learned from being a toddler walking. It's almost like I shift weight and then I have to regain my balance. What I try to do in Taichi is when I'm committing weight to one side, I imagine my foot is stepping on a tray that's got marbles underneath or ball bearings underneath. So imagine if you were going to stand on something that compromised, you would be very careful and you would make sure you got straight down. Yeah, let's give that a go. Let's leave the arms out for the moment. Imagine that under your left foot, you're standing on a tray or a plate and it's got marbles underneath it. And then as you start to commit weight and you're turning your waist clockwise, see what that feels like. It might feel that you can't commit as much weight as you could before if you're dropping straight down. And then we're going to push this foot against the ground to even up the weight, square the body to the front. And then we've got this precarious tray under our right foot. And we're going to melt into it, both feet, ankles, knees and hips, and feel what it could be like to step into this, again, this precarious tray with marbles underneath. It's still there as you push to come up. So let's just do that a couple of times to try and feel that sense of movement. And then let's try it with the arms again. Okay, so we start from still. We start from still. We load into the ground, feet, ankles, knees, hips, tailbone down. We bounce out of that position. Arms come up. And now let's start into our left foot. Arms come down like bits of silk. Being lifted up, completely relaxed, as if someone else is doing it for us. The tray's under our right foot. Arms come down like bits of silk drawn across something. You just move like this for a few minutes. If you find yourself trying to overload yourself with all the ideas I've got, really drop them away. Really prioritize relaxation, and at least try and make sure that the knee of the weighted leg is pointing forward. So look for any sources of pleasure in the movement, and we're not going to get pleasure if we keep thinking of all the parameters of the movement. We need to do that to an extent to train ourselves, but we've been doing a lot of input. So let's just do this with relaxation, and you might be enjoying the experience. Tongue touching the roof of the mouth behind the top teeth. I'm going to give us a funny little task to do while we're moving. I would have done this stopped, but we haven't got masses of time. But there's something I'd like us to do, and that is I'd like us to recall. I know the memories of this are more from my childhood. I'd like us to recall when we've driven over a humpback ridge or the crest of a hill. Can you hear me? Yeah? Or we've swung in a swing, yeah? So we know that when we've done those things, we get this sensation in the pit of our tummies. And I want us to try to not get caught up in the memory. I want us to use that memory to locate this place. Whatever it feels like, it's just having a literal geographic place placement from using that. Whereas we're turning, maybe we can imagine this place. I got this spiky ball the other day to lie on. Maybe we could imagine that place turning in our bodies as we turn. Have a real strong sense, almost as if that was the place that was turning. If you see my T-shirt here, you see when I twist my T-shirt from the center, it creates all those folds further and further out. So maybe we can imagine that the turn is coming from that place in the tummy, and the folds are moved right to the tips of the fingers. Does that make sense? Sense enough? Yeah? Okay. Okay, and we'll just play with this for another few minutes. It makes its logical sense to breathe in as the arms come up because the lungs, the ribs have got more space. But we don't necessarily need to do that. Then we're moving more into a Qigong aspect of the Taichi. Prioritizing relaxation. Being curious about the flow of changes through the body. If one of the metaphors that I've given you piques your interest, then maybe just focusing on that one, specializing in that one for the moment. Maybe we could imagine, just like a kitten, when a kitten's picked up by the mother cat, by the scruff of the neck, kittens are completely relaxed. So maybe we can imagine that we're being held from the back of the head and the whole rest of the body can drop down. As if the body was like a sopping, soaking wet woolen overcoat. We don't collapse because there's our mother holding us kindly at the back of the skull. Everything else can relax down. Tongue touching the roof of the mouth. Gently moving from side to side. And just like meditation, when we notice that we've moved into a mental distraction, we gently but persistently draw our curiosity back into the experience of the body. Looking for any sources of flow and pleasure in the experience, prioritizing relaxation. The arms lift as if someone else was doing it for us. Maybe we could think of someone trustworthy and kind, lifting our arms as if our bodies are deeply asleep and the arms are expressing their full natural weight. Someone else is gently picking them up under the elbows, and when we let go, it's as if the fingertips make a curve through space. Maybe we can imagine we're being turned by that place in the belly, in the dantian. If we imagine that we're in water, water has a couple of interesting qualities that we can imagine. One is it gives us buoyancy. And if we imagine we're in water, we might feel more confident allowing the knees to bend a little bit as we let go. If we imagine we're in water, that buoyancy can allow us to trust that it's okay to bend the knees. And the other thing about water is water has resistance. So maybe we can imagine, maybe let's just start with the palms of the hands and the backs of the hands. What would it feel like if the body was meeting resistance and breaking through it? Meeting resistance and breaking through it. And then making this the last one, we'll let the arms come down. Close our eyes. What I'd like us to do is to just notice the experience of the body, maybe especially the hands, and try to neither explain nor explain away your experience. Just noticing the experience that you're having, this physical experience. And then allowing the eyes to open, allowing colour and shape into your eye consciousness. And we'll just have a few minutes if you want to ask any questions. So thank you very much for turning up. No idea who's on Facebook, but I can see a bunch of you here. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions, do ask any questions or observations.
Yeah, no, I'd just like to say that was the first time I've really tried Tai Chi.
Okay.
I found it incredibly useful, the way you built everything up and the focus on each individual part, even though it was very difficult. But by the time we got to the end, I felt like, okay, there's something happening here.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you.
Very nice to have it built up in that way. It's
Yeah.
very helpful for.
Yeah, it doesn't work for everyone. I think a lot of people, I get a lot of beginners I only ever see the first time, because I think it is, you know, it's quite demanding to be that concentrated, but it's great that you saw that in a way it's important to sort of build it up. So yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you.